Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Stoyan. She is a transformational coach who knows how to walk her walk. She believes everyone deserves to live a vibrant life that makes them feel alive. She works with clients for over a decade and helps them connect to their vision and purpose. She helps clients heal unhealthy patterns and tap into their inner resources to achieve what she calls structured growth. Eve, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Stephen. That's a lovely introduction, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, look, I've been excited for this for a long time now. But first, a reminder to our listeners and to our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters and is important to us. So, Eve, one of the joys I have working with people and doing this podcast is that I get to connect with people from around the world. Give us a glimpse into where you grew up and where are you now living in the world?
Oh, wow. So my journey started in Hungary, in
Uh-huh.
Central Europe, and it took me through the US and Austria before arriving to Mallorca. That is a beautiful, tranquil, picturesque island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea in Europe.
Wow, sounds like a beautiful place. So, look, what was your early
It's quite a
career? Do you know
journey.
what your
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, what was your early career, Eve?
Well, you probably wouldn't guess, but I started in IT at some really big IT companies in sales and marketing. And I was always a bit of a techie, always, to be fair, I was 17 when email first came out, or at least email first made its way to us in Central Europe. So, yeah, but still, technology always fascinated me because I always felt like it's something that helps us to connect, to come closer to each other, and especially in the last couple of years helps us to grow together. So I started out in IT, and then I moved into coaching and a couple of steps in between.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I remember when I was first introduced to email, it might have been in the early 90s. And one of the things I was surprised about is how fast an email from the US, from the eastern side of the US, could get to, let's say, China. So what about you? Were you kind of surprised at the speed of email?
Oh my God, for me, it totally saved me because I was 17 when we first learned about email at
Mm.
school. And just shortly after, I went to the States for a year to be an exchange student in state Michigan. So it was a year without my family, and travel back then wasn't like it is today. And they were discouraged from coming to see me because that's how the program worked. And for me in those days, it was like, the way to stay connected to my family throughout that year and to feel a bit of home with me that far away, thousands of kilometers away.
Right, right. That's awesome. Did you enjoy your time in the US that very first time in Michigan?
I did. For me, it was really a life-changing moment. I think
Mm.
when we think back, all of us have those moments or those conversations, those interactions with people where we say, yes, this was a life-changing moment. And for me, going to the US was one of those because we traveled with my family before, but this was the first time that I was actually on my own in a very different culture, where I needed to be speaking and getting myself understood in a language that wasn't my own, and
Right.
where all the cultural clues that I was used to weren't working. And at the same time, it opened up my world beyond means. It was the first time I realized that I could actually live anywhere, and I could
Mhm.
maybe even be anyone in a way. Because
Mm.
when you go to a different country, when you speak a different language, you end up in a way being a different version of yourself. So for me, that was like my year in the US was an absolute door opener, an eye opener, and heart opener. It was amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now, but you are a coach today, and I want to approach this very, very slowly. What what prompted your shift to coaching?
Oh, wow. That's so interesting, Stephen. And thank you for asking that, because that's a very, very intimate part of my journey. When I was in the US, I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You might be familiar with it. And it was one of the first self-help, growth related books that I read, and that had a huge impact on me, because up to then I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I realized, wow, now I want to be an investor, and I'm going to study business. So, even though study-wise it shifted me on a different path, but I felt like it was one of the first books that also shifted my mindset, and that really made me think like there was a different path available to me. So I did my degree, double degree in business administration and economics. And just as I finished my degree, my then boyfriend was sent to a coaching program by his company. And one day he came home and he said, "I hate this. This is crap, excuse my French. But this would be perfect for you. No offense, right?" And I thought, like, what an introduction. But I went anyway, and I started the program, and I realized that, oh my God, this is what I was born to do. This is where I feel like I just take up all the knowledge they're throwing at me like a sponge, because I love it, and where I feel like I can really make a difference. And this is where I feel alive, where I feel all my juices flowing and my soul expanding, and this is my thing. And it was a long path from there to doing coaching full time. Was a long path. It took me through leading a company that was teaching consciousness, a US-based company that was teaching consciousness and healing, starting my own project. But since then, I knew that sooner or later, there might be steps in between. I did want to lead somebody else's company. I did want to start my own business. Those were items on my bucket list. But I knew that one day I'll dedicate all my time to coaching, because this is where I can serve the best.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'm just marveling at how the universe worked. In your case,
Amazing.
you connected your friend to coaching, and then he connected you to it, and hey, here you are. So
amazing.
So when you look at coaching, there are various ways that coaches today, life coaches, business coaches, identify themselves. And I want to start with this notion of holistic coaching, and I got that from you. What is holistic coaching, broadly speaking? And we'll try to get closer to what you do as a transformational coach. Holistic coaching, what's that?
Holistic coaching for me is a way of looking at the person in their entirety, because we very often think of one aspect or the other, our private life or our business life, our mental well-being or our physical well-being. And at the end of the day, we really just are that one holistic unit. So you can't separate the person out into different parts. To give you an example, if someone's not doing well at home, if there's trouble at home, chances are they won't be able to perform the same at work, because they'll be, it'll be in the back of their mind. They'll be worried. They're probably getting less sleep, or the quality of their sleep isn't the same. So we can't separate people out into different categories. And it's the same between physical, emotional, and mental well-being, that when we're working on an emotional, mental level, if physically the body isn't supporting the process, if the person isn't getting enough sleep, if they're not following a nutritional plan that's actually supportive of their goals, if they don't do movement therapy or exercise, so they're low in energy or their immune system is weak, then it's much harder to get the emotional and spiritual mental results that we want to achieve. And one of my projects, my own project, was a business that I sold 2 years ago that was holistic well-being studios. And what I noticed, having worked with thousands of clients, is that when we start working with them, some of them I could start working with from the coaching side, from the personality development side, but some of them needed to start working with the trainers first, through physical training, through functional training, personal training, because the results they were getting there, the way they were coming into their power, starting to gain hold of their strength, that empowered their emotional and mental process further on.
Mhm. Yeah, I get it. Working with the whole person, I get that. That's important. Now, but you brand yourself, and correct me if I'm wrong here, as a transformational coach. Firstly,
Right.
why that? Why that adjective, transformational coach? And then, what is a transformational coach?
Oh, wow. I love that question. So often when I when someone asks me what I do and I mention that I do coaching, the first question is, so what kind of coach are you? What do you focus on? And in the spirit of a holistic way of looking at people, I never quite like that question. But it got me thinking in the beginning when I got it asked more often, like, is it actually a valid question? What is it that people want to find out really? Like what is it that the person wants to know when they ask me that? What is that information that they need to have? And I came to the conclusion that it is a lot about what type of process I can best help people with. Because some
Mm.
people are really good at helping others in making their communication better, or getting more strategic, or like financial coaching is about getting a better grip on your finances and conscious planning. And my specialty is transformation,
Mm.
partially because I think that is what I'm meant to do, where I have a gift, partially because my own story has taken me through a lot of transformation throughout the years in many different ways. And that is where I feel I can serve the best. So that's where transformation comes from. And transformational coaching is really focusing on type of life situations and using tools that allow the person to leave one version of themselves behind while creating the definition of a slightly different version of themselves and crafting a plan to get there and initiating a shift. So,
Mm.
transformation, we always are in transformation, but at some parts of life, it's more obvious. Like when you go to high school and
Mhm.
you complete your high school education and you go on to university, you transform, you become a university student, you become something
Mhm.
you never were before, but we don't think of it as transformation. So later on in adult life, we also have a lot of situations where, for example, someone who was not a parent before becomes a parent, or someone who had a small team at their workplace is promoted to a larger national, for example. Those are all situations of transformation.
Mhm. Mhm. As I look at the world of coaching, life coaching, holistic coaching, transformational coaching, it has really blossomed, over the last 10 decades. What kinds of things, and I want you just to think globally for a moment, what kinds of things, what kinds of challenges do people face that suggest to them, or what type of opportunities, we could also say, that people seek that suggest to them that they may need a coach? What are we facing? What are we up to? Why do you suspect that so many of us are reaching for a coach?
One of my favorite questions is,
Mm.
I love questions, and the simpler the better. And one of them is just to stop for a moment and put your hands on your heart and think,
Mm.
is the person that you are today, the life you're living today, is this everything you ever wanted?
Mm.
And when you feel into that space, if you're honest with yourself, and that is the hardest, that's not an easy task, Stephen. My God, being honest with ourselves can, especially if you're in a bad place, if someone's hurting inside, if they're not where they want to be, it takes a lot of courage
Mm.
to be frank with ourselves. But just this one question, if there's a tiny little doubt, or if there's a little voice inside that goes like, mm, that's your signal.
Mm.
That's the sign you're looking for, that it's a good
Mm.
idea, it's a good moment to speak with someone.
Mm.
And transformation, it doesn't always have to come from a bad place. It's not that you are broken, it's not that whatever you have isn't good. I love to work with people who are really good, but at the same time, I love to work with people who want to feel great, and there's a difference
Mm.
between good and great.
Mm. Wow. Those are some powerful insights there. So the question of, putting your hand in your heart and asking that powerful question, to me, is a powerful question. Is this it, or is there more? Where did that come from for you? I mean, is that something that you found in a book or what? Where did you get that? That's pretty good. I like it.
Wow. Oh, I'm not sure I'll be able to answer this one. You have good questions yourself.
Mm,
Wow. Um, I'm not sure I'll be able to answer this
mm,
one. From a very young age, I've always had an internal dialogue, something that today when I work with people, I like to call it a body intuitive dialogue, where
mm.
you're deeply connected to your physical, your emotional, spiritual body. There's a
Yeah.
conversation, and you have this intuitive language, that inner voice that gives you information, and not just in intuitive moments. So not, well, in a lot of different intuitive situations, but not just in moments where you, for example, come across a person and you get this feeling like, this isn't my person, or this doesn't feel right, but also with food types, with life decisions, with courses. So our mind, our intuitive mind, constantly processes incredible amounts of information, way beyond what we're able to understand. And not just information of what we've ever seen before, or what we might be experiencing at the moment, unconsciously picking up signals from everything, but also information that is there in the field, and that is there in this collective energy field that we are all connected by.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
this voice for me was always very clear. It's something
mm.
that's probably a gift, and I have been working on consciously for the past 2 decades. And it always told me in a way, that there is something more. And there is
Yeah.
something, there is a growth opportunity. There is, I would feel a special feeling when I met people who would enhance my path, with whom we could have that moment where we both took
Mm.
something really special out of the conversation. Or when opportunities came up to make a move, to move countries, there was always this feeling, this body intuition sent me signals saying, hey,
Mm.
this is it. This is it. Hold on to this.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the moment you said, that powerful question, it made me think, oh, that this is something deeply spiritual, that this is just not just cerebral. So that was my impression, and you gave a wonderful response. Now, I want to dig a little
Thank you.
deeper, Eve. We'll dig a little deeper here. And the first question, again, is global. Um, when you think about change and people evolving, can a person actually do this? Because this is what people are asking. People are asking, can I change, or can I evolve, or can it happen for me? From your experience and your work with people, can we change? Can we evolve? Can we get to the next step?
Absolutely, Stephen. And I would
Mm.
actually say we cannot not change.
Huh.
And that recognition is really, really important, because if you think that by doing nothing, you're going to stay the same, you are really wrong. And it's going to be a
Mm.
hard hit finding out why. We always are growing. We're always evolving. We're always changing from little on a physiological level, our body, ourself on a hormonal level. We're in constant fluctuation. So our choice is not whether we will change or whether we want to change. Our choice, our free choice, is in what direction we want to change it.
Mm.
So we
I
can
like
either
that.
pick out the direction ourselves and have some influence over our life and over our
Yeah.
destiny, or life can drag us through this
Yeah.
change. There's entropies happening by design, by definition. We're always getting, ourselves are always aging, we're always disintegrating. In some sense, we're always dying from day one. But our choice is in what journey we want to cover in the time that we have here.
Mm.
How do we want to grow? What experiences, what do we want to actively create and manifest and bring into our lives?
Mhm. I love that. And I want to just stay here for a moment, because I really want people who are listening or watching to really let them digest this. What I hear you say, Eve, is that change is inevitable. And you say, just look at
Absolutely.
your life. Yeah. Okay. So now, but you're also, and help me if I got this right, because what I heard you say is smart change, being proactive about your change or your growth, is probably better. Is that what you're telling us? That you can actually be a participant and not just change and grow by default, which is inevitable. Stay with us a little bit. Tell us more.
Absolutely. You can co-create the person that you are evolving into. I believe that there are a lot of things that life throws at you where you don't have full control. When a child gets sick, or a loved one passes away, or your company goes out of business, there are a lot of things that we don't have control over. But there's an entire wide range of things that we do have control over. And in those, we are co-creators of both the person that we're becoming, as well as the experiences that are awaiting us. So just to go to backtrack for a second here, some people do want to live a life that is more how to put this, not so wildly changing, so like more balanced out, more equaled out. Take, for example, someone who opens up a paper shop, someone who's into pencils and notebooks and papers, and opens up a small store in their village or in their town. So this might be their passion, and all they want to do their entire life is do this really well. And all they want to do is to be the best paper shop in town, and to attend their clients, and to bring always new trends and new pens and new utensils to them. And this is all they want to do. And that's perfect. But I tell you, if they want to do this for the rest of their lives, and if they want to be able to do this, they'll have to change. So even if from the outside, it looks like they've been having that paper shop for the past 30 years, I bet you that they've been putting in a lot of work into changing, into growing. Because even to maintain that dream that might look like the same from the outside, you need to constantly evolve and adapt and embrace your own growth. And that growth very often is a structured growth.
Yeah. I'm glad you used that word, structured growth. But just first, because you're also telling us, get change, evolve, or get left behind, because nothing is static, right? Nothing stays the same forever. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Now, I'm glad you said structured growth. I mentioned that phrase when I introduced you, and I just want to make people, I didn't make it up. But what is that? I'm intrigued by your notion of structured growth, Eve. What is that?
I think there's different ways to grow. There is organic growth. There is, like, when we're children, how do you grow from a person that is crawling around into a person that can walk? You look around, you imitate your environment, you get up, you fall, you hit yourself, you get discouraged, you keep crawling for a couple more days. Then you try again, your environment is encouraging you. So, there's organic growth. And in our adult life too, there is organic growth. For example, if you're in a work team where everybody are really big brains and you're motivated, there will be organic growth, because you're picking things up from your environment and you're challenged. And if you face up to that challenge, then you will be growing. Structured growth for me is different in that it's growth that you actively seek out, and where you actively map out what it is that you want to grow to, what type of development you want to achieve. And very often when I work with clients, people find it much easier to say what they don't want. We are all way clearer about what we don't want. Some people find it fairly easy to say what they want, but it is a what that is hard to grab. It's hard to, it's not tangible. So let's say you say, I've always lived in the same country. I want to be a world traveler, but it's like, that of course it exists. World travelers exist, and it's a matter of time and money and knowledge and courage, but how does it work? Like how do you become that? So very often what I look for with clients is the how, but not the how of how to get there. But first, how do you want to feel? So let's say you are this world traveler. You never moved outside of your town or your state, but now you want to become a world traveler because you feel that that's something that would enrich your life. So how do you want to feel? as a world traveler. Let's say that you have moved into that. It's happening. You look around and you see all these amazing places, or you look on your phone and you have all these amazing pictures for incredible places where you've been. You remember the smell of the sea and the coast of Sicily, and you remember the sound of the pine trees in Norway, and you remember the taste of the spices in India, like how different all the colors were and everything. So how does it feel? How do you feel as a world traveler? Do you feel more open? Do you feel like you have more possibilities? Do you feel perhaps more comfortable that the world is a safe place because you've seen so much of it and you always adapted, and you saw that you can function in very different cultures? So that how is where we start from. And then structured growth is us becoming conscious about where you're at today. So what is your reality today? Because for example, to stick with the traveler example, many people will be like, oh, I never been anywhere. But then when you talk to them, they know their state inside out, and they know all the best fishing lakes, and they know all the most amazing mountains and the best excursions, and they know the best place, the best diner to get whatever, favorite meal. So they have all that knowledge, part of what makes up, and all those skills and characteristics, part of which are applicable to a traveler as well. So first we get an inventory of what we already have and acknowledge it, because acknowledging and loving your traits, loving your characteristics, loving who you are today, loving your story opens up the door to becoming someone else. And from there on, we take inventory of the type of things we want to experience and we need to experience to then get to this ultimate how it feels, the dream state that we want to get into.
I love that, especially getting in touch with how you feel, from this experience that hasn't happened yet. I love that. So just to stay with this one more time, is it possible from your work with people and from your sense of it, for a person, either a high achieving person or a person who, is not high achieving, make a 180-degree turn? I mean, either you're going in the wrong direction professionally and you want to go in a different direction, or if you're not making any progress. What do you think? Can your person make a 180-degree, bam, turn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell you something more, you can make that in no time. We think that change has to be hard. We think if you're ill, many people think that healing has to be difficult. Or if you're in a difficult situation, it's impossible to imagine how it could be to be in a better situation. But that's not true. Change can happen like this. It takes as much as something switching from one sentence that you read somewhere, from one conversation that you had, from one session with a coach that you really resonated with. That change can start happening. And it's a little bit like two parallel lines. If you have two parallel lines, they never meet, right? They always run parallel. But if you have two lines that are starting from the same point, but there's just a tiny little shift in one of them, it just shifts like just this much, very little. Where's that line going to end up? In the infinite, it's going to end up in a totally different planet, a whole different universe. So 180-degree change is absolutely possible. Very often, all it takes is one very powerful conversation and the right questions being asked, and change can start happening from there on. And 6 months later, looking back, you'll be amazed.
Yeah, I believe you. I think that is possible for sure. Yeah. So, in terms of working with people, what kinds of things do people bring to a coach? 2 or 3 of them. What kinds of things people bring to a coach?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me just reach back maybe to most recent examples. Someone I was working with recently, they wanted to, their initial objective was to find a better emotional balance. They felt like they were really all over the place and they found it very exhausting. And as we started working, they realized that partially they don't have a good emotional self-regulation. So there's a lot of energy going into these ups and downs, into very wild curves in their ups and downs. But then they also realized that their environment at work was not respectful and was an environment that promoted exhaustion and burnout and taking advantage of the workers. So they came to the conclusion that they actually want to change that environment. And right now we're working, their current moment of evolution is how to voice the things that are not right for them. So, what I want to demonstrate with this is that they originally came because they felt like they're not really connected to their path, and they're too much all over the place and too volatile. And from that, we went to discovering that there's an environment that is actually quite toxic to them and not supportive of them working in a positive and constructive way, only to discover that their ability to communicate and to hold and communicate their healthy boundaries and be able to engage in honest and assertive interactions with others at the moment is something that could develop. So that would be one example. But we've worked with another person not so long ago. We worked on a leadership issue where they wouldn't be able. They're leading a small team. It's an entrepreneur, the person I'm talking about. And in this team, more or less everybody gets along. But at the end of the day, it's always the boss who picks up the balls. So, whenever they do events, they do catering, and there's always a glitch. There's something always slips, and it's always the boss stepping in to pick up the ball. So that isn't working for him because obviously he's exhausted and can't be everywhere. And there was a communication problem additionally to that with one of the employees who wouldn't accept their lead. So this would be another more traditional topic that we've worked on. But all kinds, really.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, and I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said there, and those are good examples for sure. But I want you to share a little more about self-regulation. What do you mean? I know that's prominent in your work. What do you mean by that? Tell us a little more about that. How can a person learn to be, self-regulated?
Stephen, that's all about mindfulness for me. So self-regulation is the ability to respond to things that are happening to you or in your environment that affect you while maintaining your emotional integrity and while being able to maintain a healthy balance in your emotions, in your mental state, and choose your response. Wow. We live in a world that is crazy intense. Yeah. And we were biologically not made for this. We were not made to be constantly receiving messages and at work and at home, messages on TV, messages from the media, from who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to function. There is so much that isn't healthy in this environment. And there's a lot of stimuli. There is a lot of stuff being thrown at us. So a lot of people are responding by a very volatile nervous system. They're becoming, the curves of excitement and reaction and alertness and all the hormones, all the adrenaline and everything that goes through your system in that moment. There's too much intensity. And in the longer run, this is not healthy on a physical level, but it's also not helpful emotionally and mentally because it's distracting, because it's exhausting, and because ultimately you give away power and agency over your own well-being to your environment. So self-regulation is about learning to both control what is happening inside, recognize and control what is happening inside, and be able to articulate it and assert yourself in situations that are happening to and around you so that you can have a healthy interaction with your environment.
Wow, I love that. Well, that's a powerful reminder. Stephen Covey back in the day was one of the guys who was telling us in his writings and his speeches that we have the ability to choose our responses. And that's one Absolutely. Of the things that you've just said to us, that you do have some power there. The other
Absolutely.
thing that you've said, Eve, that I just find striking, and I know you've talked about this, and I've seen you writing some things about this elsewhere, and I thought, wow. And it's in quotes now, finding your center. You've already touched upon it, but I want to put this out there as a topical thing. Can you tell us about that? How do you guide a person into finding their center?
We very often start from a physical point of view. I actually, with finding our center, I find it helpful to reach back to practices of mindfulness, yoga, meditation. But even when I say meditation, many of us envision a person sitting in a yogic position with the eyes closed and trying their darnest to not think about anything while thoughts are going like crazy through your mind. That's not the only way to meditate. Meditation can be a walk in nature. Meditation can be active. Meditation can be picking things up at home and putting order, not because you have to, but because it relaxes your mind and it gives you a nice environment. Meditation can be gardening. There are a million different ways. So anything that makes your nervous system relax, anything that makes you breathe a little deeper and feel a little bit more present in the moment. Meditation or a meditative practice can be a deep conversation with someone where you're absolutely present, where you feel that you wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now, just like I'm feeling with having this conversation with you right now. There's nowhere else in the world I would want to be. So this is flow. This is what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about in his book Flow. That is amazing, this meditative state. So finding your center, I find it helpful through these practices, whether it's yoga, a favorite sport, petting an animal if you like animals, or interacting with an animal, or any of these meditative practices, that feeling that you have of being here and now and being enough, and this being the only thing you want right now, that's one of the ways it feels being in your center. And
Wow.
once you practice that, it's like bicycle riding. When you first get on a bike, you're probably, there at whatever age it is, you're probably having those little side wheels that help so that you don't fall over. But then with time, the side wheels come off, and then and then you might be still a bit shaky, but you know how to ride the bike. But then if you get a bike 2 months later or 5 months later, having ridden the bike every day, you can literally fly onto that bike and bike off, and you're not going to fall because you have it super integrated. So that's what happens with being in your center. When you find it through dance, through music, through meditative practices, deep, authentic interactions, interactions with people or with animals or out in nature, whatever's your vibe, it will be ever easier to get into it again by strengthening those moments, by strengthening your ability to connect to your core.
That's beautiful, Eve. I tell you. And I know that mindfulness appears prominently in your work, things that you write about, and you've just told us about it. But would you please, tell us what mindfulness is, so that we can connect it to this word? What is mindfulness?
So
I know
mindfulness is
somewhat
this.
redundant, but forgive me for this. But I want you to hit it again.
No, not at all. There are so many buzzwords today that are out there, and that a lot of the psychologists and coaches and other therapists are talking about. And actually, even a lot of the celebrities and influencers are picking up a lot of these terms because they're in our popular culture. And I think at the end of the day, it's never redundant because everybody has their own definition, and it's super important so that we all can explore what our definition of each term is. And we as a collective need to be talking about these things because it's amazing that we're becoming ever more conscious. So mindfulness for me is the ability to be present in every moment. So if I walk home from work, I can either be walking home and be the entire time in my head, like, what happened? And he said this, and she said that, and this client didn't show up, and they canceled, and I'm gonna pay the bills and whatever. I might have walked by an incredible, beautiful passage there, and I might have seen beautiful trees and a lovely dog that walked by, and maybe that person that came by was smiling at me or even said hello, and I'm completely missing out on all of it. Or if you look into a business context, you can have a meeting where somebody confronts you, and if I work on autopilot, and if I'm tired that day, or if I had a difficult conversation with my partner the previous day, then I might just snap at them. Then there's something that happens to me. There's an action that comes from my environment, and I just go and react right away. So, then I might just push back, or I'll be like, what do you know? This isn't a good idea, or this is not what this meeting is about, or, you just stay with your department. Now, if I know to practice mindfulness, then I'm able to be present with what is truly there in that moment. And even though I might feel attacked by a confrontative comment at a meeting, I'm able to stay present, first of all, with what I'm feeling, and identify, before snapping back at the person, identify that I feel confronted, I feel attacked, and then identify that that person isn't actually attacking me. Their actual aim is not to destroy me, to hurt my reputation, or to take me out of the project. There could be something else. So then this gap opens up between what happens to me and my reaction. And in that gap lives my freedom to respond and to say, oh, well, thank you for asking that. Why are you asking that? Or why do you need to know this data? How can I help your department achieve what they are looking for? Or, that's an interesting feedback. Thank you. How would you address it? So mindfulness is the ability to be present with what is truly happening in the room, not with our perception of what we feel is happening, but with our feelings of what is being done to us and with what is actually objectively happening in any given situation.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that with us. There's another buzzword you said.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, yeah, and there's another buzzword that you read about, at least I read about and hear about, and it's the word consciousness. Now, you've mentioned consciousness and conscious a few times, and you've worked when you were in your late teens, early 20s at a Center for Consciousness. What is that about, Eve?
Consciousness is, wow. Oh my God, how much time do we have? So consciousness is amazing. Consciousness is this ability to go beyond your thinking, your ego, your mentally thinking self, and feel and tap into something a little bit beyond that. Consciousness is, in many ways, for me also, consciousness is going beyond being just this person, limited by the skin, locked into this body. Consciousness is being connected, being part of a larger collective, and having access to information and resources within this energy field that we all share. Wow. It is a lot about us not being material beings. Consciousness for me is a lot about us being spiritual beings, having the human experience, and having a mindful experience here on Earth, and being able to connect with others on a level that is beyond what is tangible, what we can see and touch and easily grasp.
I love it. Wow. I didn't know that a coach could be so deeply spiritual. That's awesome. I just love that. I love that response. And I know we're running out of time, but I know that you used to offer a guide to intelligent change, 7 steps to transformation. Do you still offer that guide, or is that now something?
Yeah, that's right. That's still available on my website, stoyan.com. And that's a guide that I developed partially on sessions after sessions with clients, how I experienced and analyzed their pattern of change, as well as my pattern of change. And I really like this guide because I wanted to create something that you can read over your coffee or tea or whatever it is that you like to have, your morning drink. So it's really quick. And it can give you some pointers, and it can give you some both things that you recognize and understand, but also some actionable steps to claim agency and be able to create a shift from the first moment. So I encourage everyone to go grab it, because it's a gift that I developed, wanting to serve and wanting to, with that one person in mind who needs to read it, who needs to hear this, to be able to take their first step towards change today.
That's great. We'll put the website in the show notes, but just in case people missed it,
thank you for that.
You said that it's a gift. So you mean it's free?
It is free. It is absolutely free.
That's awesome.
I believe in paying forward. And I know that until today, I could tell you, like in my past 4 decades, I could tell you the name of every person who made a gift like that to me, a gift of transformation, a gift of change. They were my way markers. They are the ones, if I ever wanted to tell you my personal story, if I ever wanted to tell you my path, I would tell it to you through those people, because they are the ones that made a life-changing comment, or that were by my side when I was in the hardest situation and really needed someone, and really needed a friend, really needed someone to hold me, to back me up. So these are the people who really are change makers. And I believe that they paid it forward, to me, through me. They did this without any interest. And I want to be able to do that for others, because I know that it is life-changing.
That's fantastic. Wow. 7 steps, and those 7 steps are outlined.
7 steps, the spiral of change.
That's great. Now, I know that you have a passion, to work with women, and not only because you're a woman, but tell us about that passion beyond being a woman yourself. Why is this important to you? Why is this high on your list?
Oh, wow. That's another difficult question, because just consciously, I don't think coaching or change or transformation has a gender. And I believe that all of the, personality development world should be open to every type of identification, because ultimately we're all people, we're all souls on a journey to a better version, to a version of ourselves that feels more alive and more vibrant. That being said, I feel like there is a slight difference in working with people who identify as women, working with women. There's a slight difference. The tools, the communication is a little bit different. And I also feel like, because our collective history on this planet has placed, in most parts of the planet, has placed women at a disadvantage for so many centuries. I feel that there is still a bit of healing, still a bit of extra push that we need to do and give to all come to the same level. Working with women, I hear way more often that they're doubting themselves, that they don't want to claim their space, or that they're being judged for claiming their space. They're being called loud or bossy or unfeminine for claiming their space. And women have a very interesting way of transforming just physiologically, and the way our bodies change, our hormonal changes that are very intense and very cyclical. That's a transformation muscle right there that you have every month of your life, as or most women have it as a big part of their life. And not just the physiological, but the emotional, the spiritual changes. So, I think there's a lot of power if we learn to work with those characteristics consciously. There's a lot of power in that. And I believe that power can heal our world and can make this world a better place for everybody, regardless of gender orientation or whatever other factor.
I love it. And that passion also extends to female entrepreneurs. What type of offering do you give to female entrepreneurs?
First of all, when I created my main tool through which I work with people, which are the deep coaching immersions, this is a 2-hour online session where we connect in a very, very intense way. the people that I had most in mind were female entrepreneurs, because I know, I bootstrapped my business. Came up with an original concept that didn't exist in Spain at the time, and I financed it from my savings. It was a very steep learning curve and an amazing journey. So I know it's not easy, and I know you're way short on time. So when I first created the format for the deep coaching immersions, my goal was to offer something where we can, in 2 hours, just 2 hours, achieve a shift. So we can give an answer to 2 or 3 really burning issues, or we can start a tiny little shift so that your transformation gets on its way. And then the people who want to go onto a deeper work, there are other formats, 3 months formats, 6 months formats available, mostly one-on-one. There are group activities, and I myself have been to groups, and I believe that a group's power can be really transformational as well because of all the support. But I also think that working one-on-one, especially in a world today where everything is online, on demand, no human contact, I think that can really make a huge difference. And to female entrepreneurs who have to deal with not just the uncertainty of starting something new and all the hard work that needs to be put into it in the beginning, but they're also essentially swimming against the current, because there's less funding for female entrepreneurs, because there's less recognition. In many countries, there's a lot of sexism that they come up against. So, I think that efficiency, that individualized work, that efficiency in working on the exact precise topics that enable them to thrive and to shine, that's my contribution as a format to making this a possibility for them.
That's beautiful. I love it. Hey, we have talked about a number of things
you.
today, but I got to ask you one more thing, Eve. Hope you have time to answer.
All right.
Is there any, okay, it's easy, it's a good one. Is there anything else you care to share with us that we have not touched on already? Or do you want to go deeper on anything?
I think there's only like one thought that I would love to put out there. And that is that the time is now. And I know this sounds like a horrible cliche, but the pandemic was such a big global trauma, and this isn't really talked enough about. I think many people have come through and out of the pandemic feeling tired, or realizing that they're not quite as happy at their workplace, or they're not quite as connected with their partner as they thought they were. And I would encourage everyone to not numb that momentum, not let that momentum slip, because this is a great moment to change. And this is a great moment to claim the life that you deserve, to claim that life that really makes you feel excited and alive, and that makes you feel like, yes, there is more, and this is my more. And, this is an ongoing process. This isn't like, okay, so, now I achieved this one thing that I thought was my more, and now we're done. Transformation is a muscle. So the more you work it, the better it works. The more you open up your ability to see opportunity and possibility in every person, in every conversation that comes your way. So I really, really encourage people to grab it, to reach for it. And, there's a million opportunities out there. Whether you look at this YouTube video or other interviews, you realize I browsed through them and there's so much good material in there. Whether you look at a book, or you go to a seminar that's organized near you, or you just talk to someone in your environment that has been talking about development or a change they have gone through, take that first step. It is a cliche, but it is very true. That 1,000-mile journey does start with that first step. And you deserve to live a life. Everybody deserves to live a life that will feel like their legacy, because it is.
Wow.
And that will make them feel unapologetically alive.
I love it. Eve Stoyan, this was amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you, Stephen. Lovely talking to you, and your questions. I mean, you should be a coach. Serious, your questions are amazing, and thank you so much for bringing this to people, and to giving all of us the opportunity to speak and to share our knowledge, because it is a true gift. You really make a difference.
Okay. Well, look, thank you so much again. Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Eve Stoyan. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day